Food prices are rising globally as a result of Russia's war in Ukraine, which is blocking grain from leaving the breadbasket of the world and endangering shortages, starvation, and political instability in developing countries. Together, Russia and Ukraine export more than 70% of the world's sunflower oil, about a third of its wheat and barley, and significant amounts of corn. Will this food crisis affect us in the long run? What is being currently done to avoid this problem? Make sure to stay tuned until the end to find out. Hey guys, welcome back to another amazing video. Today in this video, we'll be discussing Ukraine-Russia's food crisis and every single thing about it. But before we head on to our topic, make sure to subscribe to our channel Economy Expert for more such economy content. Russia is the world's largest producer of fertilizer. The issue has become worse just when world food prices were already on the rise because the war has stopped around 20 million tons of Ukrainian grain from reaching the Middle East, North Africa, and parts of Asia. The demand for secure routes to carry grain out of Ukraine's Black Sea ports is growing as the summer harvest season approaches. Anna Nagany, a board member at the Kiev School of Economics and a crisis management student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, said, "This needs to happen in the next few months or it's going to be terrible." She asserts that 400 million people worldwide depend on Ukrainian food supplies. According to the UN Food and Agricultural Organization, up to 181 million people in 41 countries may suffer a food crisis or even more severe levels of famine this year. Here is information about the food crisis in detail. 90% of the wheat and other products grown in Ukraine's fields are unable to travel by boat to international markets because of Russian blockades along the Black Sea coast. Compared to maritime routes, the amount of grain that is diverted across Europe through rail, road and river is insignificant. The fact that Ukraine's rail gauges are incompatible with those of its western neighbors is a contributing factor in the freight delays. The Deputy Minister of Agriculture for Ukraine, Markian Dmitrasevich, appealed to EU lawmakers for help in boosting grain exports. In addition to building new cargo terminals on the Danube River and decreasing red tape for freight passing at the Polish border, he urged extending the use of a Romanian port on the Black Sea. The people who need food are now much further away, though. You need to go through all of Europe in order to get back to the Mediterranean now. The price of Ukraine grain has climbed by an amazing amount, said Joseph Glauber, senior scientist researcher at the International Food Policy Research Institute in Washington. According to Glauber, since the start of the war, Ukraine has only been able to export 1.5 million to 2 million tons of grain per month, down from more than 6 million tons. Additionally, no food from Russia is leaving the nation. Moscow asserts that Western sanctions imposed on its banking and shipping industries restrict Russia from exporting food and fertilizer and discourage international shipping firms from doing so. Russian authorities want sanctions lifted so they may ship grain to other markets. However, sanctions have little impact on food, according to Ursula von der Leyen, head of the European Commission, and other Western authorities. Ukraine has charged Russia with destroying agricultural infrastructure, torching farms, stealing grain, and then offering to sell it to Syria in reaction to Lebanon's and Egypt's unwillingness to purchase its food. After loading grain in a Crimean port in late May, Maxar Technologies photographed Russian-flagged ships in Syria with their hatches open. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky asserts that Russia is to blame for the present food crisis. Authorities in the West, notably US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and the President of European Council Charles Michel, claim that Russia is converting food into weapons. According to Russia, shipments can continue if Ukraine eliminates the mines in the Black Sea and incoming ships can be inspected for weaponry. Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, said that his country would take all the necessary steps to ensure that the ships may depart there freely and would not abuse its naval superiority. Authorities in the West and Ukraine have concerns about this assurance. Turkey's foreign minister Mevlut Cavusoglu said last week that since the sites of the explosive devices are known, secure routes may be built without first needing to be freed from naval mines. But there would still be questions that needed to be resolved, including whether insurance firms would cover ships. Dmitrasevich claimed that the only choice was to defeat Russia and unlock the ports. He last week informed the EU agriculture ministers that no other temporary measures, often including humanitarian corridors, can fix the situation. The poor nations that are most at risk from price increases and shortages are the primary recipients of Ukraine and Russia's staple exports. Wheat, grain and sunflower oil from the two countries at conflict with each other's countries are significantly relied upon by nations like Somalia, Libya, Lebanon, Egypt and Sudan. The extremely poor are bearing the burden, according to Glauber. Without a doubt, that is a humanitarian disaster. Along with the risk of hunger, many nations face the potential for political instability due to rising food prices. They contributed to the Arab Spring, and there are concerns that it will happen again. According to Glauber, the governments of emerging nations must either allow food prices to rise or subsidize costs. He claimed that Egypt, the top importer of wheat worldwide, could afford to tolerate higher food prices. He said humanitarian aid will be crucial for developing nations like Yemen and those in the Horn of Africa, he said. Famine and starvation are prevalent in that region of Africa. While millions of animals that households depend on for milk and meat have perished, prices for basic commodities like wheat and cooking oil have, in some cases, more than doubled. The Russia-Ukraine conflict occurred on top of years of domestic problems in Sudan and Yemen. If the world merely pays attention to the conflict in Ukraine and does nothing, UNICEF warns that there will be an explosion of child deaths. According to UN agencies, 19 million Yemenis will likely endure food insecurity this year. 18 million Sudanese may experience severe hunger by September, and more than 200,000 people in Somalia face catastrophic hunger and starvation. In some of those nations, the price of wheat has increased by as much as 750%. In general, everything has increased in price. It's practically impossible now, according to Justus Liku, a food security advisor with the relief organization CARE, who just traveled to Somalia, to save flour. Bakeries in Lebanon that once offered a variety of flatbreads now just sell plain white pita bread. What is being done? UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has been attempting for weeks to reach a deal that would allow Ukraine to move goods out of the important port of Odessa and unblock Russian deliveries of grain and fertilizer. But development has been gradual. In the interim, a sizable amount of grain gets trapped in Ukrainian silos or on farms. And there's more to come. The winter wheat harvest in Ukraine will shortly begin, placing more strain on storage facilities, though some fields are probably going to remain unharvested due to the war. Serhiy Rebetsov cannot sell the abundant grain on his farm in the Donbas region due to transportation disruptions. Prices are so low because there are so few purchasers that farming is just not viable. There are some possibilities to sell, but doing so is like tossing something away, he claimed. According to US Vice President Joe Biden, a solution to the problem of the differing rail gauges between Ukraine and Europe is to construct temporary silos on Ukraine's borders, especially those with Poland. Grain is supposed to be moved into the silos, then into cars in Europe, get it out to the ocean, and get it throughout the world. But it's taking time, he stated on Tuesday during a speech. What's costing more? According to the FAO's wheat price index, wheat prices have increased by 45% during the first 3 months of the year compared with the same period last year. Vegetable oil costs have increased by 41%, and prices for sugar, pork, milk and fish have all increased by double digits. The price hikes are causing global inflation to accelerate, driving up the cost of food and forcing prices rise on restaurant operators due to rising costs. Some nations are responding by attempting to safeguard domestic sources. India has prohibited the shipment of live chickens, upsetting Singapore, which imports a third of its poultry from Malaysia. Malaysia has also restricted the export of wheat and sugar. According to the International Food Policy Research Institute, if food shortages worsen as the war continues, this could result in greater export restrictions, which would raise prices even more. According to Grow Intelligence, a provider of agriculture data and analytics, Steve Matthews, a second danger is the scarcity and high cost of fertilizer, which could result in less productive fields as farmers cut corners. Two of the key compounds in fertilizer, of which Russia is a major source, have particularly significant shortages. According to Matthews, we will experience declining yields if the current potassium and phosphate crisis persists. There is no doubt about that in the upcoming years. Do you think this food crisis will affect globally? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. And that's all for today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, please like, share and subscribe to our channel Economy Expert for more such amazing content.